Good morning, and welcome to the Sunday morning Bible class of the Clayton Church of Christ, and of anybody else who has the opportunity to watch this video. We've been studying the book of Hebrews, and we finished that last Bible class. And I wanted to go at it a little different, using some of the passages from Hebrews that we've studied. But I want us to look at our faith, and our faith refocused. In Hebrews 1 or 11:3, we read, "By faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible." I've often thought of this verse and just was astounded. From nothing came something. Now, if you don't believe in God, you don't believe that statement. From nothing came something. Only God could do that. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 2:8 that none of the rulers of this age, the first century, understood this point. For if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. And when we start thinking about all that's been done for us through Jesus Christ, when we start thinking about the plan of God from before the foundation of the earth, before the beginning of time, we start thinking about this song. Feel free to sing along. interested in knowing that this same idea was recorded by both Reba McEntire and Leanne Womack in a beautiful song called There Is a God. Now, you might listen to both of these young ladies as they sing these songs on YouTube or Amazon Music and decide which one you think is better. I've listened to them both this afternoon, and I really can't make a choice. It's a beautiful song. Hear the words. Try and put your arms around the 100-year-old tree. Climb up on a horse and let it run full speed. Take a look down at the world from 30,000 feet on your next flight. Watch a flock of birds against the morning sun. Close your eyes and listen to the river run. Catch a firefly in your hands or a raindrop on your tongue. That's right. There is a God. There is a God. There is a God. How much proof do you need? Plant a seed and see what comes out of the ground. Find the heartbeat on your baby's ultrasound. In a few years, hear it laughing. And don't it sound like a song? Stop and think about what you don't understand. Things like life and love and how the world began. Hear the doctors say he can't explain it, but the cancer's gone. There is a God. There is a God. There is a God. Genesis 1:1 does not argue the existence of God. It simply says, in the beginning, God. Hebrews 11:6 tells us without faith, and that's what we're focusing on, refocusing on today, without faith, it is impossible to please God. Because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. We want to look at this concept of God does exist. Now, what I'm about to show you goes by pretty fast. But remember, you can rerun this video, stop it where you want and take notes. Have to go back. Yeah. Now, here it comes.
Lots of people say there's no evidence for God. Well, we're going to knock that one out in three. I'm just going to have to keep it simple, throw in the old 1-2 combo, get in and out real quick, and let you fine folks chat all about it, okay? Punch one I'm going to call the info uppercut. When's the last time you walked into a library and asked, hey, where are all the books that have been written by mindless products of natural laws? The librarian will probably laugh at you and tell you that no such books exist. They don't exist because they can't exist. Why not? Because first of all, it's just common sense. The words that form the message in books always originate from a person with a brain. Or to say it a bit more scientifically, the message of the book, the purpose, comes to be understood by the orderly placement of the words, design, and information. Information. Now, anytime we find info, these basic laws always apply. Number one, matter doesn't spontaneously produce information. Number two, only a mental source, intelligence, can generate new creative information. In other words, just like those books that couldn't originate without a mind, neither could life. Why not, you ask? Because we know that DNA contains information. Therefore, the laws of information science apply, which means the information in DNA couldn't have spontaneously generated, and that a mind is behind the information. Period. No exceptions. Look at it this way. The simplest life form we know of is an amoeba, and it contains as much information in its DNA as 1,000 complete sets of Encyclopedia Britannica. So, are we to believe that there's no way a message in a library book could spontaneously generate, but far more complicated messages in DNA that contain 1,000 times more information could have? Not likely. You see, when it comes to life or anything else that contains information, the laws of information science confirm the necessity of a creative mind. And guess what? In the very first book of the Bible, it just happens to mention that. In the beginning, God created. Bam! Uppercut lands on the chin. And now here comes the indefensible head blow. We'll call this the Nada Big Bang Bing swing, the KO to the claim that there's no evidence of God, the law of causality, left hook of doom. It goes like this. Everything that had a beginning had a cause. The universe had a beginning, therefore the universe had a cause. Now, either something caused the universe to come into existence, or nothing caused it. I might not be the smartest guy behind the telescope, but honest, practical, everyday thinking's going to lead me to the former. You have to work pretty hard to conjure up a way that nothing did it. You see, it's pretty improbable, nigh impossible, to account for design, information, and cause if the universe just exploded from nothing. Smack. And while we're on the topic, where did the matter come from that exploded? Are we really to believe that there was nothing and then it exploded, and now the exploded nothing is something, and we just happen to be smart enough to discover and understand the very laws that prove the opposite? And if the general understanding of the law of cause and effect is true, how can matter come from a lesser cause like nothing? I mean, come on. I don't have a bunch of letters after my name, but even a monkey knows better. And yeah, I snuck in a couple of extra jabs in there, so sue me. Now for some parting words from our sponsor, the Bible. It tells us in Romans 1:20 that since the creation of the world, God's invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so they are without excuse. It also says that people actually know the truth, but they reject it, which explains why even though there's overwhelming evidence that there is a God, evidence won't convince the unwilling. Sad but true. So there you have it. With just a couple of meaningful blows, the claim that there is no evidence for God is down for the count, amigos. In other words, it's been debunked. Adios.
I know that's fast, but boy, was there some good information in there. Let's look at Romans 1:20. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes. We understand that God is invisible. We can't see him with our eye. We can't touch him, we can't taste him, we can't feel him. He's invisible. But since the creation, Genesis 1, his invisible attributes, his eternal power, his divine nature, have been clearly seen. You can't see him with the eye, but his eternal power, his divine nature, have been witnessed from the beginning through what has been made. Hebrews 11 tells us that everything that has been created was created by God from nothing. But everything that has been created by God has been shown to be his creation through our eyes. We see that, have been seeing that all our lives, and every person who's ever lived has been able to see that, being understood through what has been made, that it's so clearly that men are without excuse. Now, for since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, divine nature, have been clearly seen. Now, the New Living Translation puts it, for ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and sky. That's kind of one of those duh things. Ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and sky. I may not be the most intelligent person behind the photo lens, but I can tell you that I didn't make that. Nobody I know can make it. It had to be made by something greater than we are. Romans 1:18 through 32 describes why God rightfully condemns humanity and some of what he has done about it. Humanity's fall is pictured as a downward progression. It starts with rejecting God as creator, refusing to see what can be known about him by what he's made. We also reject that he is our provider, and we stop giving him thanks. We worship his creation instead of him. We worship the things we can see, the things we can touch. That includes money. That includes power. That includes a dozen other things that don't have the power to make the world. We worship those things instead of him. Finally, God acts by giving us over to the unchecked expression of corrupt sexual desires and all other kinds of sin. Now, God doesn't make us do any of that. But if we want to worship God, He does allow us to do that. Again, we're in Romans 1. In part, God expresses His wrath by giving us what we want and condemning us to suffer painful consequences.
Faith, the final frontier. These are the voyages. No, it's ridiculous, although that's where most people take this topic, to science fiction. Faith. What is it really? A magic feeling that we get to help us through tough times? A mystical bridge between fact and fiction? Is it really blind? Is it a word we use when we can't explain ourselves? Is it real on any level? Let's investigate. Hypothetical. A person says to you, I sure do wish I could believe in millibuggins like you do, I just don't have that kind of faith. Well, what that person is really saying is that millibuggins aren't real, and you are the type of person who believes in unreal things, and it takes this strange faith thing that not many other people have for you to get there. Okay, in the nicest way possible then, this person is calling you insane, or at best just a little nutty. So you have this odd capability of believing in something you desperately wish to be true, but you just can't be sure if it is. However, since it makes you feel better, it's worth it for you. Well, that pretty much sums up what faith means to most people. In other words, the stronger your faith, the more ridiculous the belief must be, because after all, a little faith helps you believe in things that probably aren't true, so then a really powerful faith will be the kind of faith you absolutely know something isn't true, but you still believe it anyway. Thus, faith is reduced to some blind anecdotal act that magically suspends disbelief of reality in order to make you feel better. But you gotta wonder, is this really the kind of faith the Bible talks about? Let's look at the word again, okay? Let's refocus. The Bible refers to faith really in only one way. It's like this. Suppose I say, I have faith that my friend will repay me the $10 he owes me on Saturday because he said he would. See, there's nothing strange about that faith, and nobody would fault me for having it if they knew my friend. Because what I'm saying essentially are three things. One, my friend is real. Two, he's trustworthy. And three, which is really a subset of two, I believe one and two because I have a relationship with my friend. Now, for just a second, let's get morbid to make a critical illustration. What if my friend died on the way to give me my $10 back? He didn't come through. No matter how much faith I had in him, how real and completely trustworthy he may have been, he didn't have the power to live up to my faith. Was he really any less trustworthy or any less real? No. But the person or object on which I place my faith is an essential part of how strong my faith should be. I mean, how much faith do you have that your 2-year-old basset hound can drive your new Lexus to the bank and bring you back $1,000 in 20s? None, I hope. But now, turn that analogy of my friend and your dog toward God, who is all-powerful, all-knowing, eternal, and incapable of lying, and ask yourself this. On whom does it make the most sense to place your greatest faith? Well, I'll tell you, anyone who has a right relationship with God, and quite honestly anyone who doesn't, knows he is the only one capable of doing everything he says, the only one with the knowledge of the future, the only one who understands everything, the only one who really knows you, and the only one who has revealed through nature and his word who he is and what he's done, how much he loves you, and why he is the only completely trustworthy one there is. Got it? Good. In summary then, faith in God is always a response to truth and reality and has nothing to do with blind leaps, the USS Enterprise, or wishful thinking. Trust me.
Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. We don't usually think about faith in terms of substance, do we? No. Faith is about things that aren't yet come. But this text says it has substance. Because faith, the faith we have in God, the faith we have in His promises, the faith we have in the cross, the faith we have in the blood of Jesus, the faith we have that those who have been baptized into Christ and are faithful until the end shall be saved and receive their home in heaven. That's what we hope for. And our faith in Jesus, our faith that there is a God, is the substance of that hope. I think it's interesting as well that faith is also evidence. I've tried to show you in this lesson that by the things unseen, we can believe in things because there's evidence. When the wind blows, I feel it on my face. Generally, even though I lack hair, I see it as my hair blows. So, what I'm saying is, I know there's wind because of physical things that I witness. When I look at the tree outside on the north side of our building, I was there 24 years ago or so when that tree was planted. I guess 21 years ago. I've seen it grow. But I can tell you this, I didn't make it. I barely even watered it. God made it. And God's watered it. I don't have to see God to know that. I can see all the things around me that indicate that God did it. I look at the grass. I didn't do that. No man I know can do that. Oh, you can plant a seed, but who made the seed? There are a lot of people in the seed business who do all sorts of things to make the grass seed or other kinds of seed better, less resistant or more resistant to the drought in this area, more resistant to the insects in this area. But they didn't make the seed. Faith is evidence of things I cannot see, but things I hope for. And I want you to remember this as I close this lesson. Faith is the victory. Here's a man standing on a mountaintop. Just take a look at this sight. I want you to look deep into the picture for a moment. If you look deep into the picture and use your imagination, you see the cross. It's not really there, but there is a cross. Here is a man standing on the top of a mountain. Now he can see the evidence of God in the stars of the Milky Way. And I want you to know, man can understand that it took a God to make that by faith. Refocused, he can see the cross and the Son of God who died there for him. And that's what I want you to see this morning. I want you to refocus your faith and see God, who before the foundation of the earth, before any of these stars were made, before the earth was created, before man began, God made a plan for us to be saved through him. Until the next time, whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord. And may the good Lord take a liking to you. Happy trails.